and welcome back to Shakesyear. Notice it's light outside. Fancy. Daylight savings time. Anyway, we are working on Julius Caesar, and today we get to hear once again from Casca in Act 1, Scene 2. So, stuff that's happened, Lupercal is happening, great big celebrations because Caesar came back triumphant from the wars against Pompey, and there was a race being run, and Caesar wants fat idiots surrounding him as opposed to really sharp, intelligent men because they make him nervous, but he's not really going to admit to being nervous. And all of Caesar and his train have since left the scene, though Caesar was warned before the race to beware the Ides of March, which, if you didn't know, the Ides of March is March 15th. He was warned by a soothsayer to beware the Ides of March. Then they go run this race. Then they come back, we find out that he wants fat men around him, then they go away, but Brutus and Cassius sort of grab Casca and keep him behind because they want to know what all happened at the races since they didn't go to watch it. So yesterday Casca was telling us that Caesar was offered a crown 3 times and he refused it 3 times and then he fainted. And they're like, wait, what? He fainted? Like, Caesar's not the sort that faints. The thing is, there is historical record of Julius Caesar having some sort of infirmity, though there's a lot of debate about what his infirmity was. A lot of people thought that he was epileptic. More recently, they're saying that he suffered from a series of mini seizures throughout his life, or mini strokes throughout his life, that sort of thing. And there's somebody else that says maybe it was syphilis or something along those lines. So some debate as to what exactly he had, but he did have some sort of physical infirmity. So Shakespeare latched onto that and had him pass out, and they're like, but he's not the sort that passes out, and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, are you sure that that's what happened? And Casca's like, Mary, before he fell down, when he perceived the common herd was glad he refused the crown, he plucked me ope his doublet and offered them his throat to cut. And I had been a man of any occupation, if I would not have taken him at a word, I might go to hell among the rogues. And so he fell. When he came to himself again, he said, if he had done or said anything amiss, he desired their worships to think it was his infirmity. 3 or 4 wenches where I stood cried, alas, good soul, and forgave him with all their hearts. But there's no heed to be taken of them. If Caesar had stabbed their mothers, they would have done no less. So that might speak a little bit more to him having a series of mini strokes as opposed to an epileptic seizure, because right before he passed out, he ripped open his shirt and told people to cut his throat. And then he passed out, and then when he came to again, he was like, if I did anything weird, never mind. So yeah, just kind of an interesting scene, and it sort of reinforces Cassius's point when he was telling the stories earlier about how he had to save Caesar from a freezing river, and how Caesar once had a really bad fever that made him seem weak, all that sort of thing. This is it's a moment of public weakness for Caesar, which is kind of an interesting thing. So after hearing this, Brutus and Cassius are like, that's fascinating. And did Cicero say anything? And Casca's like, yeah, he said something, but it was in Greek. And they're like, well, what did it mean? And this is where the phrase, it's all Greek to me, came from, because Casca says that. He didn't know what Cicero was saying because he doesn't understand Greek, so he can't relay what was said in that moment. But he does hint that the people who heard him say it, who understood it, were sort of like, so that happened. And then to like butter him up a little bit more, Cassius is like, can I treat you to dinner? And he's like, nope, not tonight. He's like, how about tomorrow? And he's like, if I'm still alive, sure, you can treat me to dinner tomorrow night. And then Brutus and Cassius have a brief moment where they talk about Casca, and they don't necessarily like this rude persona that he's put on, but they like that he's sort of on their side. He seems to be like activated in this plan. And Brutus goes home and has a really sort of grammatically awkward line where he's like, yeah, I'll come over to your place, or if you'd rather, you can come over to my place and I'll sit and wait for you, or something like that. It's a weird exit line, but considering Brutus has not been himself lately, it is kind of like nice and awkward and fumbly for him to leave on. And then once he leaves, Cassius gets the stage to himself and gets to sort of mwahahaha, and we get to hear that tomorrow. So I'll see you then for that. Mwah.